योगेन चित्तस्य पदेन वाचाम् मलं शरीरस्य च वैद्यकेन योपाकरोत्तं प्रवरं मुनीनां पतञ्जलिं प्राञ्जलिरानतोऽस्मि आबाहुपुरुषाकारं शङ्खचक्रासिधारिणम् सहस्रशिरसं श्वेतं प्रणमामि पतञ्जलिम् गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णु गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरुः साक्षात् परब्रह्म तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः हरिः ओम्. So in the previous session, we had started with Sutra 3.51, which was sthānyupanimantraṇe, saṅgasmayākaraṇaṃ, punaraniṣṭaprasaṅgāt. And we had seen the meaning of the sutra word by word, and we had also started on the bhashya. So today we'll continue from where we left off. And in the bhashya, we had seen that Vyasa pointed out to us that in the context of the sutras, there are 4 categories of yogis. The first being Prathamakalpikaha, the second Madhubhumikaha, third was Prajñā Jyotihi, the fourth was Atikranta Bhavaniyaha. And then Vyasa had proceeded to explain to us what is the meaning and who falls under which category. And then we also saw as part of that how the name of the term, name of the category was suitable to the type of yogi who would fall in that category. So very briefly, the first category was, first one was an abhyasi, pravrittamatra jyotihi. So that was Prathamakalpikaha. So one who is completely engaged in yoga abhyasa, has attained a glimpse of some of the siddhis, but who is not entirely established in those higher fruits of yoga. The second, Madhubhumikaha, was described by Vyasa as saying, Ritambara Prajño Dvitiyaha. So the second has reached the point of getting the Ritambara Prajña, the Prajña, the mental cognition, which is of the nature of Sakshatkara, which is full of Ritam, which refers to the complete truth. So the second one is established, is able to get into samadhi, samprajñāta samadhi, and get the complete understanding, the 360-degree understanding which we had seen in the past, which is yogika pratyaksham, as a result of the samadhi. The third, Prajñā Jyotihi, was described by Vyasa as Bhutendriya Jayi. So who has attained the Bhuta Jaya and Indriya Jaya, which we had seen in recent sutras, which is a very high caliber, highly exalted siddhi. Sarveshu bhaviteshu bhavaniyeshu kritarakshabandha kritakartavya sadhanadiman. So who has the means to get samadhi on everything on which samadhi sanyama can be had. And not only that, he has achieved the samadhi and is holding to it. So Kritaraksha Bandha means Bhumika Samrakshana Bandha. So whatever state he has reached, he is able to hold on to it, which means that is he has mastery over it. It is in in the control of that yogi, so he can obtain that sanyama, that sakshatkara, whenever he wants to. So that was the third category. Fourth, which was termed as atikranta bhavaniya, which means one who has gone beyond any of the sakshatkara, any of the bhavanam or bhavaniya. So the whole knowable category, he has gone beyond that, so he is on the path of asampragnata samadhi. So yastu atikranta bhavaniyas tasya chitta pratisarga eko artha. He has one sole purpose, which is that the chitta needs to go back into the prakriti from which it has evolved, as per the Yoga Shastra. So the complete quote unquote dissolving, or the reverse of the evolution that brought about the chitta from prakriti, it goes back into prakriti. That is known as pratisarga, and that is his sole purpose. So then we know that the virama pratyaya etc. are related to this asampragnata samadhi. And then Vyasa reminded us saptavida asya pranta bhumi prajna, which is also reference to the previous sutra in the second chapter, 27th sutra. So this is a quick summary of what we had seen that had been described in more detail in the previous session. Now we continue from where we left off. So Vyasa says, Tatra madhumatim bhumim sakshat kurvato brahmanasya sthāninaha devaha satvashuddhim anupashyantaha sthānehi upanimantraṇe. So let us understand what is being said. Tatra madhumatim bhumim sakshat krutavatah brahmanasya sthāninaha devaha. So the first part, Tatra madhumatim bhumim sakshat krutavatah brahmanasya. Now with regard to that yogi, which yogi? Who has reached the madhumati bhumi, which he has obtained a sakshatkara of. So here they are referring to the second category, madhu bhumikaha. So with regard to the second category of yogi, who, just as a reminder, had reached the point of the ability to do the sanyama and had obtained the Ritambhara prajna, Ritambhara prajna, it was described. So with respect to the second category, what happens? The sthāninaha devaha, the deities, the celestial deities of different lokas, which we had again seen in the previous session. What is this sthāni? So the sthāninaha mahendradayaha, it is said. So there are different lokas, Svarga Loka, etc., usually referred to as heavens and so on. So we had seen that there are multiple lokas above the Bhuloka. So those deities who preside over those lokas or those worlds or those planes of existence, what do? Sattva shuddhim anupashyantaha, looking at the purity of his antakaranam, the inner instrument, the chitta, looking at the sattva shuddhi. Now looking at that, sthānaihi upanimantraṇe. Sthānaihi means the bhogas pertaining to those sthanas. So every higher world, every higher loka, every higher plane of existence has more exalted life experiences, more exalted vibhutis, or more. So, for example, it is said, okay, there is no disease, and the life is long, there are enjoyments, there is a divine music, and so on. So there are different bhogas at different celestial planes. So they use that. So sthānehi. So with those as the means, or using that, they invite such a yogi, or the second category, sthānyupanimantraṇe, who the celestial deities invite such a yogi of the second category. How do they invite? They say, Bho, iha asyatam, iha ramyatam, kamaniyo ayam bhogaha, kamaniya ayam kanya, rasayanam idam jara mrityu badhate, vaihayasamidam yanam, amikalpadrumaha, पुण्यामंदाकिनी सिद्धा महर्षयः उत्तमा अनुकूल अप्सरसः दिव्ये श्रोत्रचक्षुषी वज्रोपमः कायः. So there are so many things, a list has been provided using which they entice the yogi to arrive at their loka. So they say, oh yogi, come here, take your place here. Iha asyatam, iha ramyatam, enjoy over here. Kamaniyo ayam bhogaha. So the experience here is very enjoyable. Kamaniya ayam kanya. Rasayanam idam jara mrityu badhate. There are beautiful beings. This medicine will get rid of all disease and death. This Vaihayasamidam Yanam, this vehicle allows you to fly anywhere you wish. Amikalpadrumaha, these trees will give you whatever you ask for. So these are magical trees. Punyamandakini, this river is the celestial counterpart of the river Ganga. So this is the divine river. Siddha Maharshayaha, the rishis here, they are siddhas, they have attained all the siddhis. They are there for you to discuss with, to learn from. Uttama Anukula Apsarasaha, the Apsaras, the divine damsels, so to speak. The perfect ones are here. They are very suitable to you. Divye Shrotra Chakshushi, you will get divine hearing, divine sight. So you will be able to see things that are very subtle, very far away, obstructed by something else. Everything will be available to your senses. Vajropamaha kayaha, the body here is as hard as the diamond. So come, we have so many riches, so many things to offer to you. So that is what the celestial, the sthaninaha, the sthanis, so tells the yogi of the second category. They say, we have so much here, please come, please come. Further they say, Swagunaihi sarvamidam uparditam ayushmata Pratipadyatam idam akshayam ajaram amarasthanam devanam priyam iti. So they say, don't worry, swagunahi, by your own qualities, by your own qualifications, sarvamitam uparditam ayushmata. O yogi, who is bestowed with a long and special life, you have earned all this through your own qualities and qualifications. So don't worry that we are offering you something that you do not deserve. It has been earned by you. Please come, please take it. Pratipadyatam idam. Come, take all this which is akshayam, which will never fade away. Ajaram, which never disintegrates. Amarasthanam, so this is one free of disease. This is one free of death. Come here, this is Devanam Priyam. This is loved or a favorite even of the gods. So this is the place. So please come. You have earned it, and we have all this to offer to you. So this is what the Devatas, the celestials, will invite the yogi with. So Upanimantraṇe. So this is something which is also referred to as Adi Daivika Badha. So it is sort of an obstacle in the path of yoga, which is what we have to see. But it is also very special that the second category of the yogi is invited with. Now, a question might arise as to why only the second category? Why not the first category? Why not the third higher category? Why not the fourth category? So that is also something to be understood, in the sense that what is described in these texts, it's also sound, coherent, and given with what there is a certain backing rationale behind these things. So why only the second category? So the answer is in some other texts, and it is sort of clear when you look at how the categories are defined. In one of the texts, it is said, Eteshu pratamasya nopamantranam abhyasi matratvat. So the first category does not have these kinds of invitations from the deities. The first category of yogi, he is still a abhyasi matra, only studying, only trying to achieve, has a glimpse, has maybe reached samadhi a little bit, but does not have a hold on it, not yet established in that path. So he has not come to the point where celestials will start inviting them. So definitely that is not applicable to the first category. And the second category, yes, definitely applicable, and we just saw how the invitations come to that yogi. Now what is about the third? Now the third category that we have seen is Bhutendriya Jayi Tritiyaha. Sarveshu bhaviteshu bhavaniyeshu krutaraksha bandha krutakartavya sadhanadiman. So he has already, the third category has already obtained Bhutendriya Jaya. So he has, so it is said, Tritiya Chaturtayoho tu Swayam Ishvara Kalpatvad Upekshaniya eva te bhavanti. For someone at that level who has Bhutendriya Jaya, who is Ishvara Kalpa, as from a Siddhi point of view, as powerful as Ishvara, in the sense of having complete control over Bhutendriya Jaya, and we have seen Sarvadishtatratvam, Sarvajñatratvam, etc. So someone at that level, or the third category, with Bhutendriya Jaya, for that kind of a yogi, these things are no longer something that will attract that yogi, because he is well beyond all this. So he won't care about these riches, those vehicles that can fly, the trees that can give anything you ask for. So that yogi has gone beyond all that. So there is no point inviting any yogi of the third category, because he is well over and beyond all those celestial lokas already with the Bhutendriya Jaya. And therefore, the third category of the yogi is not, these invitations are not suitable for yogi of that higher caliber. And of course, for the fourth, who is not interested even in the Bhutendriya Jaya, he has developed a Paravairagya. So his only sole purpose is the Chitta Pratisarga. Now for that yogi, there is no question of offering all these bhogas. So therefore, the fourth category of the yogi, no one will dare to go and invite such a yogi with these kinds of invitations. And therefore it is the only second category. Ataha madibhumikasya eva kritya prajñavatah dvitiyasya eva tadbhavati. So now we have this understanding of what, for whom such invitations go, and at what level as a yogi rises in his siddhis, at what point the yogi will meet with such invitations. Now further Vyasa will tell us what the yogi should do when he is offered such invitations. That will come next.
So the four planes of yogis got mentioned, and therein you just have heard why the second grade of yogis are only getting these enticements, allurements from celestial forces, and why not the other bhumis. So you heard the rationale behind it. So the second bhumi yogi, the yogi on the second level, the second hierarchy, gets the invitations from celestial beings. And you just now heard what kind of allurements were extended to him. And even a common man today, we also know that extraordinary enjoyments and pleasures and delights and experiences come in celestial plane. So these are Swargadi lokas, various planes of creation on the higher plane. We had considered them while we were considering the Bhuvana Jnanam in the Surya Samyama Sutra. So we were told about those 7 upper planes and 7 lower planes, and 7 upper planes are celestial planes. And those are the planes where the celestial deities reside, and they preside over those planes. Now, seeing the yogi on the second plane, which you just now heard the description as to how this particular yogi is, he starts getting these allurements and invitations. And you also heard what kind of invitations were extended to him, and they are indeed allurements for a yogi on the plane. And the celestial conditions are described. So we come to know what are the celestial conditions. That the pleasures and delights are immeasurably greater than what we get on terrestrial plane. That's why we refer to certain enjoyments as celestial enjoyments. Moreover, the yogi is also promised by going to such planes, vajropamakayaha, that the body becomes decayless and diseaseless, problemless. No pain and sorrow would be touching these celestial deities. So we know how, compared to our terrestrial plane, how this plane is. And therefore, these are indeed allurements, because on the terrestrial plane we will be vulnerable to all kinds of problems, adibhutik, adidevik, adhyatmik. And on the celestial plane, these problems are not there. Basically, we have vajropamakaya and the divya sukhas, shabda sparsha rupa rasa gandha, divya, great kinds of pleasures, and to be absolutely anukula, absolutely suitable, comfortable for a yogi who has attained that plane, and that's why he gets the allurements. About the mention of Mandakini, the river Ganga, mythology tells us that the Ganga originates from, it's called Vishnupada. It comes from the feet of Vishnu, or from the big toe of Vishnu. Ganga has source in the feet of Vishnu, then it flows down and it comes to the head of Shiva, according to mythology, and then from head to the Shiva, we get the Ganga on our terrestrial plane. So the source of Ganga, which is so venerable river for we Indians, it has source in Vishnupada. So one Ganga is also called Vishnupada, and therefore it is also terrestrial planes. The Ganga, a river that is on the terrestrial plane, originating at Gangotri on Himalayas and flowing down to Ganga Sagar, it has origin far beyond Gangotri. The head of Shiva receives the Ganga from the feet of Vishnu. So that's the Mandakini river, which is the Ganga in celestial planes. Then one can understand how that Ganga Snanam would be, the bath in Ganga would be. So he's offered such allurements which are really enticing. And you just now also heard from Srineet why the other bhumis, the yogis, don't have these allurements prior to second and later to second. And you heard the rationale behind it. So that's also an interesting thing that you should take note of. Now on the terrestrial plane, the other yogis, the allurements on the terrestrial plane is more than enough for the fall of yogi. The great people, they can have fall with the allurements which are terrestrial, and that is sufficient. But now the yogi having gone to second plane, the allurements of the terrestrial plane are no more allurements. They don't entice him. They cannot entice him. Otherwise, on the terrestrial plane, you get name, fame, money, recognition, etc., etc. And that is sufficient allurement for the yogis prior to second plane. And sometimes even those who are not attained these planes, yet the yogis can have allurements on the terrestrial plane. While these won't be allurements, name, fame, money, recognition, these terrestrial glories won't have any enticement for the yogi on the plane of the second level, and therefore these allurements come from celestial planes. So interesting thing to noted by people of our generation is that we don't call them aliens, as today we are used to calling them aliens who are not from our plane but from other planes. But they are devatas, devatas. They are celestial beings, and they have superhuman problems. They are way ahead of powers, superhuman powers. They are way ahead of human abilities, human capacities, human endowments, and that's why they are rightly called as devatas in the culture of the lore. So on the higher plane, it is the residents of devatas and not aliens, and they have superhuman powers, being devatas. And this can be understood by looking into the Puranas, where you get stories about devatas and their powers and their glory. Basically, they don't have they are immortals in true sense of the term, even corporeally in their manifestation. They have long life of some millions and billions of years, unlike our lifespan of 100 years or 100 plus years. And moreover, they don't have jara, vyadhi, dukkha. So they don't have janma, mrityu, jara, vyadhi kind of sorrow, which is signature condition to mortals. Bhagavad Gita tells us about janma, mrityu, jara, vyadhi, dukkha, dosanudarshanam. That this is the sorrow for mortals on the terrestrial plane, and these are not there to devatas. Absolutely proof to any such condition, such as old age, jara, weakness, decay, and then disease and death. And it is indeed glorious kind of plane, and therefore the allurements come from such a place where the diseases are kept at bay, decay is kept at bay, old age is kept at bay, weakness is kept at bay, and any difficulties that we encounter on the terrestrial plane are all kept at bay. And therefore there are indeed allurements. So that's how it got mentioned. And for the yogi on the Dvitiya Bhumi, and you heard why these bhogas, these allurements are not suitable for those on the third and fourth plane, and how they are not applicable on the first plane. And first plane allurements come terrestrially only by name, fame, money, recognition, etc., etc. There are sufficient enough allurements for those on the lower plane or before the second plane rises. But in second plane, celestial allurements are there. So accepting that and rejecting that both creates a problem is what is going to be mentioned hereafter. So that will be interesting part of the Vyasa Bhashya. Okay.
So Vyasa continues. He says, Evam avidiyamanaha sangadoshan bhavaye ghoreshu. So now Vyasa is providing his recommendations on what's to be done when such invitations are received by the yogi of the second category. He says, when addressed in this manner, one has to bring to mind the Sanga dosha, all the problems associated with attachment. One should say in their mind, he says, Samsara angareshu pacchamanena maya janana marana andhakare viparivartamanena. So by me, who has been burning in this fires of the samsara, the fires of this world, and getting cooked in that, in the darkness of birth and death, one who is running in those cycles, by such a person, that is me, katanchit, in one way or the other, with difficulty, katanchit, asaditaha, I have reached, I have obtained, klesha timira vinashaha, the removal of the, or the destruction of the darkness of the kleshas, yoga pradipaha, the flame of yoga. So the yogi should bring to mind that I have been burning in these worldly fires, the darkness of the cycles of birth and death, and by darkness it is a reference also to the absence of jnana, the darkness of ignorance, the cycles of birth and death. And with great difficulty, somehow, somehow, I have achieved, I have reached a point where the klesha timira vinashaha, the darkness of the kleshas, have gotten destroyed, and I have achieved the yoga pradipaha, the light of yoga. Tasya cha ete trishnayonayaha vishayavayavaha pratipakshaha. Of this flame of yoga, the light of yoga, these trishna yonis, these things that are nothing but things that give birth to thirst, to want, to desire. So all these bhogas being offered to me are just simply trishna yonis. If you look at it from the right point of view, they are nothing but things that will give birth to desire, wants, thirst. Vishayavayavaha, these are the winds of objects that allure the senses, which will simply carry me if I enter there. So these are the pratipakshas. So you remember from the second chapter where we have seen vitarka badane pratipaksha bhavanam. So when such obstacles in the chitta are encountered, the pratipaksha has to be brought about in the mind. The pratipaksha is the counter arguments, the other side. So here the other side has been prescribed by Vyasa by pointing out the problems if one were to yield to these invitations to these bhogas. So iti pratipakshaha. So okay, in this sense, here in the specific sentence, the pratipaksha is in the context of the Trishna Yoni being the opposite of the Yoga Pradipa. Okay, so let me be very clear. So tasya cha ete, of the Yoga Pradipa, these are nothing but Trishna Yonis, the centers that give birth to desire, Vishayavayavaha, and these are the Pratipakshaha. They are working against the Yoga Pradipaha. They are working against the light of Yoga. Sa khalu aham labdha katham anaya vishayamrugatrishnaya vanchitaha tasyaiva punah pradiptasya samsaragnehe atmanam indhani kuryam iti. So it continues. So indeed, how can I, Sakhalu Aham, Labdha Lokaha, one who has attained the true knowledge, the true way of looking at things, the true light. How can I, Katham, Anaya, Vishayamrugatrishnaya, Vanchitaha, who has been, how can I, who has finally gotten rid of this snare, this mirage of full of enticements and objects of the senses. One who has finally gotten free of those, how can I again in this burning samsara agni, how can I make myself indani kuryam? How can I myself become the fuel to this burning samsara agni by again entering into it and thereby offering myself to be burnt in this place of desire and wants and so on. So essentially, Vyasa is saying one has to, like the Bhagavad Gita line that was just quoted, dukkha dosha anudarshanam, one has to identify the problems that can arise from these bhogas to someone who is keen to go in the path of yoga and look at the choice of words and the imagery of fire and fuel and so on. That shows the intensity of how the problems are seen by Vyasa. Because the moment one enters into this, one is going to be completely trapped and get into the cycle of desire, wants, actions of those kinds, leading to again the samskaras and the like we had seen. So the attachment cycle is going to sort of grow and grow into a, like we say, like an avalanche. So, and somehow in one way or the other, finally I have attained the light of knowledge and gotten away, escaped from this Vishaya Mriga Trishna, from the mirage and the cyclone of all these, the worldly objects. And how can I make myself fuel to this fire once more? So this is what the yogi has to bring about in his mind, bhavayet. So then what is to be done? The swastivaha, swapnopamebhya, krupana jana prarthaniyebhya, vishayebhya, ityevam nishchitamatihi, samadhim bhavayet. So what is to be done? One is to say swastivaha. So whoever are inviting, we have to say thanks but no thanks. May things be good with you. So that is swastivaha. From these dream-like, swapnopamebhya, dream-like, krupana jana prarthaniyebhya, the dream-like kinds of things which the lower class of people who are full of wants, the kinds of things that they will pray for from these objects, I want to go away. And then nishchitamatihi, with no doubt, with a firm conviction, samadhim bhavayet, continue to go in the path of samadhi and bring about samadhi. So that is how Vyasa is prescribing on how to deal with this adhidaivika badha, the obstacle of a divine and celestial nature. Sangam akritva, smayam api na kuryad, evam aham devanam api prarthaniya iti. So far we have seen how to avoid the attachment. Sangam akritva. Sangam means attachment. So without getting the desire and attachment, further Vyasa cautions, smayam api na kuryat. And the smaya is also in the sutra. So smaya is pride. Sort of the good feeling that, oh, I am so great, I am being invited by these celestials. So that pride that will arise from that should also not be done. Smayam api na kuryat. Evam aham devanam api prarthaniya. Oh, look at me. Even the celestials are coming and praying for me to join in their world. So, oh, I am of such an exalted level. So that kind of pride also should not be done. Says Vyasa, smayam api na kuryat, evam aham devanam api prarthaniya iti. Smayat ayam susthitam manyataya mrityuna kesheshu ghritam iva atmanam na bhavayishyati. So why to do that? Because if this pride develops, okay, one will not realize the real the reality of the situation, which is as though mrityu, death, is pulling one, holding one by the hair and pulling. That is the reality of the situation. Because once you get pulled, it is very difficult to come out of it and continue on the path of yoga. So it is as though the death is holding one by the hair and pulling. But if pride engulfs the mind, that reality of the situation won't be apparent. So smayādayam susthitam manyataya. One may think that, oh, one is in a very good position and will not understand that the reality is that it is as though death is holding one by the hair and pulling one, and one has to quickly escape from that situation. So that might be missed. Even atmanam na bhavayashyati. And therefore one has to stay away from these invitations and stay away from maya, which is the pride that may arise out of it, says Vyasa. Tatha cha asya छिद्रांतरप्रेक्षी नित्यं यत्नोपचर्यः प्रमादः लब्धविवरः क्लेशान् उत्थम्बयिष्यति. And what will happen if the smaya, the pride, is maintained? The pramada is the fall. It is like a mistake done in a certain path. It is the fall from the right, or the moving away from the right path. Now the pramada is described as chidrantara prekshi nityam yatnopacharyaha. It is that which peeps from the holes that are there in the right path, so to speak, the metaphorical hole, where sometimes one may stray. And from that nityam yatnopacharyaha, the yogi has forever, constantly, eternally put in efforts to avoid that. So that kind of pramada, it will become labdha vivaraha. It will obtain its gap. So it is the type that will peep through the hole, and it is of the type that the yogi is always bent on avoiding that from happening through high advertence to his yoga. But at this point, this pramada may obtain its gap, labdha vivaraha. Then once it has obtained its gap, like we say, it's put the toe in the door or foot in the door. So once you have obtained that little gap, what will it do? Kleshan uttambayishyati. It will give rise to and increase. It will sort of nourish and increase the kleshas. And therefore one has to avoid the smaya, the pride, is what Vyasa is saying. And once that happens, tataha punaraniṣṭaprasaṅgāt. Again, one is in an undesirable circumstance. Tata punaraniṣṭaprasaṅgāt. Evam asya saṅgasmaya avakurvatah bhavito artho drudi bhavishyati. So, one has to stay away. And if one stays away, because one has avoided avakurvatah, one who has avoided the sangha and smaya, the attachment and pride, then what will happen? Bhavito arthaha drudi bhavishyati. Means whatever the sakshatkara has been attained, that is a bhavito arthaha. Whatever vision, knowledge has arisen from the samadhi, that will become firmly, more and more firm and firmly established. So bhavito arthaha drudi bhavishyati. So not only that, he says bhavaniyascha arthaha abhimukhi bhavishyati. So as we had seen earlier, one progresses in one samadhi by level, and we had seen multiple sutras. Sometimes you may jump multiple levels. So in this case, if you avoid the attachment and the pride, then whatever has been obtained in samadhi so far, the bhavito arthaha, that becomes firmer, and whatever is yet to be attained, bhavaniyascha, what levels and what sakshatkar are yet to be attained, that comes in sort of the yogi faces that direction, abhimukhi bhavishyati. So that samadhi comes right in front in that yogi's path. Okay, and that is why the sangha and smaya has to be avoided. So by saying this, Vyasa concludes. So Vyasa has explained who are these sthanis, what are these invitations, upanimantranam, what is sangha and smaya, and what happens and why it should not be done akaranam. Why? Because punaraniṣṭaprasaṅgāt, it will lead to undesirable circumstance, and then how one has to tackle that when it happens. So, of course, Bhagavad Gita doesn't go in these details of the Yoga Shastra that Patanjali and Vyasa get into. But there is a sloka in the 18th chapter which is Yasya naham krito bhavo buddhir yasya nilipyate hatva pisa iman lokan nahantina nibadhyate. So yasya naham krito bhavaha. So one who does not have that pride that, oh, I have achieved so much. So the smaya is not there. Buddhir yasya nilipyate. One whose buddhi does not get attached by attachments. Hatva pisa iman lokan nahanti nanibadhyate. So that is his advice to Arjuna, that even here, if in war, if you happen to kill, you are actually neither killing nor getting bound to worldly things. So it is the same advice against the sangha and smaya that is coming here in a very specific situation in this particular sutra and bhashya. So that is about 3.51.
So having received the invitations from celestial deities, it is not a simple answer that can be given in the form of yes or no. Because if you say yes, that means you are accepting invitations. Alternatively, you might say no, that means you are rejecting invitations. Now, that is not the way that the yogi would be going about. Otherwise, on the worldly plane, we have some people, crafty people, who are diplomatic in answering certain questions. If such a condition comes, they are diplomatic, so they do not fall in the bad books of either of the parties there. So that's not a diplomacy that yogi would be practicing. He ponders over, because it's a difficult situation. The celestial deities have extended invitations. So the honoring the invitation has certain consequences, and dishonoring the invitations has certain consequences. And therefore, yogi has a predicament in saying yes or no. Either ways, there is a difficulty. So what does the yogi think when the invitations come to him from celestial beings? So his thought process is spelled out by Vyasa in his statement, which is evam avidiyamanaha sangadoshan bhavayed pureje samsara angareshu, etc., that you heard just now. So what does the yogi think when the invitations come to him from celestial beings? So he recalls why did he embrace this discipline of yoga and the culture of yoga and the dharma of yoga, having been parched by the worldly things, mundane things. It is yogi who are parched, and you and me are not parched. Many things are delights, enjoyments for us, clemencies for us. The Janma Marana Chakra, the wheel of Janma Marana, is a problem to a person who has reached particular spiritual level. It is not a problem for us. We don't bother about what is in our next life. Even if we know that there is next life, we don't bother about it. But that's not a big problem, that we will have a life hereafter. That doesn't create a problem. We have enough problems to be in this life itself. So the problem that we are going to face in ensuing life or life after life is not a problem for us. But those who are spiritually evolved, they know what is the sorrow of getting into or remaining into Janana Marana Chakra. And that is almost the andhakara, that's the darkness for a spiritually realized person. So Yogi recalls as to why did I go for Yoga Marga? Why did I embrace the Yoga Pradipa, the light of yoga? And if I say yes, what will happen to this? Because of which I embraced Yoga Marga, Yoga Dharma, and was going with for Yoga Pradipa, the light of yoga. So if I accept it, I will be again getting into that wheel. Because about celestial beings, Bhagavad Gita tells us, what's the virtue? It is the virtue which takes us to heavens. And once the virtue's end, we come back to Martyaloka. We come back to again plane of mortality. Kshine punya Martyaloke vishanti is what Bhagavad Gita tells us. So even if you go to celestial plane, what is going to happen is that you are again going to return back to the same plane. So again, we will be back to square one. Yogi will be back to square one. In case he accepts the invitation, he will enjoy it for long time. But the Swargadi Lokas also have dissolution, and the rule of the karma is that once the Swargabhoga is over, you come back to Martyaloka. You come again to the plane of mortal beings and again get into the wheel of Janma Marana. So, in a nutshell, the whole philosophy behind yoga is put in by the statement of Vyasa as to what is this plane of mortality, our plane, terrestrial plane, mortal plane, and then immortal plane of divinities, the celestial beings. So it is relative immortality. They have lifespan, and once the punya, once the baggage of virtue ends, one is certain to come back to Martyaloka. So the basis to not to accept, then the alternative would be rejected. And that again would be creating a problem. So the predicament of a yogi is that to say yes is a problem, and to say no is also a problem. You can't say, give a point blank negative answer that no. But even that yogi is not still diplomatic. So he ponders over the situation that might arise by accepting the invitation and also rejecting the invitation. Rejecting the invitation can result into a kind of smaya, pride, in a sense. I resisted myself from falling prey to celestial invitations. I could even refuse them. This is a pride of a worldly human being. If you can refuse a great person, there is a kind of pride that comes up. So in either case, it is a problem, and yogi's culture is such that he knows the problem this way and that way. And therefore, he gives the answer to them, to the Devatas, as to why he is not accepting the invitation, so that they won't be hurt. He actually give them honor, respect, and they should be given because they are all, after all, celestial beings. They are superior than human beings. So, in order that the curse is not attracted, he praises them humbly. He humbly rejects. And that is an important thing to be noted because of his culture, yogi's culture. So he knows the problems either ways, and the problems of the either ways are beautifully put forward by Vyasa in his comment. So smaya is also a problem if you refuse. How to refuse honestly and humbly? Because we might refuse a person with arrogance or giving rise to arrogance. Out of arrogance, it will give rise to arrogance. So the care must be taken here. It's a very delicate situation that the yogi is caught. And therefore, how he comes through is something that is to be taken note of. It is because of the culture of his consciousness. And therefore, evam aham devanam api prarthaniya iti. So he is definitely holding them as revered beings and doesn't compromise with any reverence to them. And that is how he is taking his stand. And Vyasa has beautifully worded this particular situation that arises for a yogi on this particular plane, the second plane of hierarchies. Okay.
Okay, so we'll stop for today and continue with the next sutra in the next session. So let's recite the shlokas on Guruji. Stop the session. वैज्ञानिकं प्रवक्तृत्व आसनेषु कलाविदं योगाभ्यासे च तत्त्वज्ञं वन्देऽहं सुन्दरं गुरुं योगवृक्षो हि लोकेऽस्मिन् यत्प्रेरणेन वर्धितः योगाचार्यगुरो तुभ्यं सुन्दराय नमो नमः. Thank you.
Namaskar all of you.